All right. Well, good morning. Let's see, another day of geometry. So let's go ahead and get into our packet 4. So this is your packet 4. Just a reminder, we're going to try to get through this entire week as far as we can. I'm not really sure how the schedule is going to go. It's a little bit of a mess, especially in the last week because we have grades and all this stuff to do. I'm gonna look through the calendar and see what I can find, although I'm finding conflicting information, so it's kind of hard to tell what's actually gonna happen, but I'll let you know as soon as I know. But again, chapter 4, and this is actually gonna be the second lesson. It's actually gonna be the one underneath homework 2. If you remember on Friday, we covered homework 1. So you're gonna have to go in a little bit further into your packet, or if you haven't gotten that one, then you're gonna have to go back and get that one from either the video or somehow. All right, so triangle sum theorem. Now I mentioned this one last week. Well, it was actually just like the last lesson or 2 lessons ago even. We were talking about the triangles and how the inside adds up to 180 degrees. Now we didn't actually cover this, but I did kind of mention it, right? So I was saying that like if we want to prove some triangles are the same or different or what kind of triangle they are, you can always use the interior measures to get it. So in this case here, if you were to take all three interior angles of a triangle, it'll always add up to 180. Now there's also another one that's kind of similar, and that's the exterior angle theorem. And here we have, well, let me go ahead and just read it out. An exterior angle is formed by extending any one side of the triangle. So take one side and extend it. So that means to move it out a little bit further. So that's what they did here. So if it goes from here to that corner, and then it keeps going. So what this means is the exterior angle. So in this case, it's number 1. So angle number 1 is equal to angle 2 and 3. That's these 2 angles over here that are opposite of it, so non-adjacent. But if we look at this corner and we look at the other 2, if we were to add those 2 up, it would be equal to this one here. All right, so I know that's a bit of stuff to cover, but as always, I think once we start using it and applying it, it'll be a little bit easier to understand exactly how it works. All right, so hopefully you got these 2, because I'm going to go ahead and move down a little bit here. So directions are to find all missing angles. So it looks like here we're missing this one here. Oh, okay, so it gives us some of them that are missing, some of them that are there. So it looks like we're gonna start off a little bit easy. I'm gonna maybe move in a little closer. There we go. That way we can see a little bit more. And I know some people might be on their phones or some other small device in order to get the lesson here. So, okay, so we know that this is 37. And this is 24. So 37 and 24. Well, we need to know how many degrees are left over from 180. So again, remember, all 3 interior angles must add up to 180 degrees. And you can easily just grab a calculator in this case here and go ahead and do that. And I'm probably not going to do this for each one. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take 180 and minus the angles that we do know. So I know there's a 24-degree angle. And then there's also a second angle that we know, and that was 37. Oops. Oh, come on. 119. No, it was, let me just start over. 180 minus, oh, come on. What is going on with this thing? 180 minus 24, or actually that was 37, and then 24, so 24 and 37, and then we get 119 left over. And that's where we get this 119. So this remaining angle here is 119 degrees. All right, let's go ahead and move on over to this side here. So I have 2 that we know of, 76 and 52. And if we were to add those 2 together, we would get this larger exterior angle, right? Exterior angle, like again, interior means inside, exterior means outside. So exterior just add these two. And it's not this one here either. I know some students will add this or do something with this, in this case, interior angle that we don't know. But in this case here, well, in all cases, really, it's got to be the non-adjacent one. So it's got to be the one that's not near the angle that we're looking at. All right, number 3. So same thing with this one here. Now, in this case, we know the exterior angle. We know the exterior angle, and we know one of the interior non-adjacent angles. So we're looking for this one here. So what we're going to have to do with this one, let's see if I can get my drawing tool. And, well, we know that both of these, so that's 79 plus, and I'm going to rename this angle B. I don't know, what it should be renamed, but I'm just going to call it B. And then we're just going to have to minus 79 from both sides, because we know that both of those smaller angles should add up to the larger angle. So minus 80, oops, not 89, 79. So minus 79 here. And then we have 104 minus 79, which in this case is going to be 25 degrees. And that's what we get right there. So we're going to have to do a little bit of maneuvering with the algebra in order to get that missing angle there. So again, don't forget the two non-adjacent angles add up to the exterior angle, which is this one right here. Okay, now, in this case here, it looks like we have a set of 2 triangles, well, 3 of them if you include the big outside one. So there's actually quite a lot of stuff going on here. All right, angle 1. So how they would have gotten angle 1. So they would add this angle to that angle. And, well, let's see, let me grab my calculator. And 84 plus 66 would be 150. And if these two are 150, that must mean that this one would be 180. And how do we get to 180? Well, that one would need to be 30 degrees. So if we add them up, if we add up all 3 of these angles here, then that will be 180. So that's how they got this one here. And how did they get 41 degrees on angle number 2? Well, let's see. What can we use here? Well, in this case, actually, I think if we were starting, with everything blank, I don't think we'd be able to find out what 2 is right away. What we would have to do is find out what 3 is. So in order to find out 3, we know that these 2 must add up to 180 because they are a linear pair, right? They're right against this straight line. So 180 minus 84, and that would be 96. And that's what they get here. So if we know that this is 96, then we would know that this last angle, which is angle 2, 96 plus 43. So let me go ahead and just get 180 minus 96. And then take that same number that we get and minus 43 again, and then we get 41. So it's just filling in things using what you know. So if we know what this is, fill it in using that. And it just sort of builds on each other. So once you start filling in things, it kind of gets a little bit easier. And let's go ahead and go to the next one here. So we have 1, angle number 1. And we know that this is a 90-degree angle. So if that's 90 plus 43, and then take that number away from 180. So 180 minus 90. Well, that would obviously be 90 minus 43. So that'd be 47. So this would be 47 degrees. And again, on number 2, we have a linear pair here, and that's probably the best way to get it, is to get that linear pair. And we can tell that's a really obtuse angle, so it's going to be something pretty big. So take 180 minus 43, and that's how you get 137 for this one here. And I'm going to just write it off a little bit to the side so it's not getting confused for what's there. All right, angle number 3 would be these 3 angles put together and make them equal to 180. So 12 plus 137 plus, and I'll call this one C, should equal to 180. And then this is kind of what I'm doing. Just kind of using some algebra. You can also just sort of use some basic math and just sort of subtract what numbers you know should be there. And that's kind of what I've been doing. But I know sometimes it's helpful to see the whole thing. And I need a minus 149 from both sides. So that would give us our C value. So minus that. And that would be 31. So there's another way you could do it as well. You know, algebraically, the long way. And this is kind of a better, well, I don't want to say it's better because it is a little bit more work, but it also covers more of what's going on. And this type of setup here, you can use it for way more types of problems, word problems, or, you know, long problems with multiple steps. These are a little bit more helpful. And I know a lot of students are going to say, well, I can just subtract it and that works okay. And I'm done really easily. And it was fast and I don't have to do a lot of writing. And that's true as well. But, you know, sometimes, especially for later on, you'll have to do a lot of that stuff. All right. So moving on to the next one, number 6. Okay. So let's just try to go in order again. All right. For this one here, it looks like I'm going to have those two here. So 180 minus 68, and that's the one I'm looking at first. And then I'm gonna have to minus 61, and that's gonna be 51 degrees. So 51 degrees is gonna be this one here. And I'm just gonna go ahead and write it as 51. Because once I fill it in, it's gonna be a little bit easier to use the rest of these. And angle 2, this one's gonna be an easy one because those are vertical angles. So vertical angles are angles, you know, kind of opposite of each other. I think they used to call them a long time ago. They used to call them opposite angles. So that would just be the exact same as the one across from it. So in this case, it would just be exactly 61 as well. So go ahead and put 61 right there. And you don't need to cross these out. I'm just doing it so that way you can follow what I'm doing. So I have 61 and 90, because that's a 90-degree angle. I'm out of space inside the triangle, so I'm just going to write it on the outside. So in this case here, since I already know it's 90, 180 minus 90 is 90, and then minus 61 from that, and that would give us 3 is 29 degrees. And it looks like in most of these, except for maybe this this first one here, number 4, you can just sort of go in order. And actually, some of these might have more than one way to complete the missing angles, but I think in our case here, we can easily get most of them in order. Now that I said that, I'm probably going to end up having jinxed myself. All right, so what do we have here? So we have a 48 degree up here. And how do we get 87 degrees? Okay, all right, there's a given here. So BC bisects ACD. So ACD, this line bisects here. So bisector, remember, that means it's split directly in half. So that means this is 45 degrees and this is 45 degrees, because the only way you can split a 90 degree right in the middle would be a 45 and 45 split. So 45, 45. So we already got angle 2 and 3 right off the bat. That was easy. And to get the rest of them, we would just have to do the 180 trick. So 45 and 83, and this last angle must add up to 180. And it looks like the only way to get that would be to make it 52 degrees. And then here again, 180. So 45 plus 48 would be 93. And then I'd have to minus that from 180. So that would be 87. And again, hopefully this is not all entirely new stuff. Being a summer course, we're kind of like moving a little bit quicker because we were kind of expecting some of you to already know this, maybe all of you. And then even if you don't know it, it should be familiar, so you're not really, you know, sometimes when you hear something again and you're a little bit familiar with it, it sticks a little bit better than just having to learn the whole thing all the way from nothing. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and move down again. Let's see, what do we have? We have until 8:50, so we got about 30 more minutes left. Oh no, I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to finish this whole thing in time. All right, I'm going to give you 2 minutes to go through this. And this is kind of a longer lesson. It's 4 pages instead of the usual 2 or 3. So, start writing some of this down a little bit sooner. And I am missing a few people. I'm a little bit worried about that because it is a Monday. And I know people have a tendency to want to sleep in on Mondays. And I think somebody left. Nope, okay, everyone's still here. I'm just missing 1, 2, 3 people. And they're usually here all the time too. So I'm not sure what's going on. Oh, stretch. All right, what are we at now? 1 minute. And even if you don't get everything, again, we're going to go over it. So this is just sort of like getting a head start. Mainly the first 4, those are the first 4 that we really need to get. And actually 10 and 11 look like they are quite complicated. Oh boy. I found this meme over the weekend. It's kind of a dumb one, but it's like apartment complex. I find it quite simple, actually. All right, we're almost there. About 15 more seconds. Oops. Okay. Let's go ahead and continue. So let's see what we have here. So we have angle 1. This is the one we're looking for. So if that's the one we're looking for, then easily we would just have to add these 2 up and then subtract that from 180. And that's how they got 64 degrees. And I'm going to go through this a little bit faster. Hopefully you kind of get the idea of how the process goes, how these things fit together, and then fitting together how to get the steps from getting one to the other. Now, just some other tricks here. So for angle number 2, that one's kind of a hard one because it's an exterior angle, but there are actually a couple of things that we do know. Okay, so we do know that this is 64 degrees and this is 90 degrees. There's, it's a linear, well, not really a linear pair, but in this case, it's still on a linear line. So these 3 angles are supplementary. So being supplementary, they must, all 3 of them add up to 180 degrees as well. So we do the same thing that we did with these 2, or you could also kind of know that these 2 are, if this is a 90 degree here, then this side would also be 90 degrees, and you could just go 90 minus 64. So those are 2 ways you could get that. So in this case, that's how we know that this is 26 degrees. And now we just need angle number 3, and that one would be a pretty easy one because this triangle here adds up to 180 degrees for all 3 angles. And we know that one of them is already 90, so just 90 minus 54, and that's how we get 36. Okay, now here we have parallel lines. So remember, with parallel lines, there's actually a lot of stuff going on with them. So if you have 2 parallel lines and any kind of it's not bisector, what was the word? Transversal, that was the word, transversal. So anything that kind of connects these 2 lines. Now it's easy to see that there's a triangle here, but again, I'm talking about parallel line relations. So a couple of things is alternate interior angles. In this case, this would be alternate interior angles. That would be 73. 3 and 2 would be the same. So if I know either one of those, it would be very easy to get the rest of them. So to get 2, I have 2 options. I can either form 3 supplementary angles, or I can look at these 2, which I think this one would be a little bit easier just because it's got a little bit of stuff in there. So 180 minus 73, and that would be 107. And that would give me angle number 3 here as 107. And if I know that this is 107, these two put together would also be 107. So I already have 107 on my calculator. I'm going to go ahead and just minus 49, and that will be 58. So there you go. Now I have angle 2, and that'd be 58 degrees. Now, if this is 49 right here, now again, I'm only looking at this line right here. I'm going to ignore all the other lines except for L and M. 49 and 4 are alternate interior angles. So angle number 4 would be 49, and 5, let's see, 5 is kind of a tough one because it would be this entire outer part here. It would be 73 and 58. And that might seem a little complicated. So in this case, that's good because we have another option, because we know that this angle 4 and angle 5 will add up to 180 degrees. So just remove 49 degrees out of that and you get 131. So again, in a lot of these, so far it seems like there's multiple options. You're not just stuck with one way of doing things. You can do these any number of ways. All right, and here it looks like we have a couple of triangles, 1, 2, 3, 4, inside of this rectangle. So that rectangle might actually be a bit of a help because now there's a little bit more stuff that we can kind of draw upon. All right, how would we know that angle 1 was 34 degrees? Angle 52. Now in this case here, if I had to start with absolutely nothing, that would be a little bit tougher because I don't really see a way I could get 86. I'm sorry, I don't really see a way I can get angle number 1 right away. I was looking at that 86 there. So I'd probably go with what I do know. What I do know is that these two would add up to 90 degrees. So I could probably get angle 6 pretty easily. So go with 90 minus 52, and that's how we get 38. So I'm gonna go ahead and fill that in because that's one of the things we know. And the more things we know, the easier the rest of them will be. It'll be easier to kind of draw on what we have. So we know that these 3 angles, and there's another one, I can see that 3 might be another one. And you don't have to go in any order, just go with what you know. So I just spotted 3 there by itself. And I know that all 3 of these interior angles should add up to 180 degrees. So I'm gonna put 180 on my calculator, minus 52 right from there, and then minus 90. And that would be 38. So I got 38 left over. So angle number 3 would be 38 degrees. And actually, you know what? That would be, you notice this is 38, that's 38, because they would be alternate interior angles. Because if this is a rectangle, then we know that this is parallel to that. And that's the second way you would have figured that out. All right, so anyway, let's see what else we have. So if this is 38, number 2 would be the leftover. So it's probably like 60 something, maybe 50 something. All right, 90. Because these 2 angles must add up to 90 degrees, and one of them is already 38, so I'm going to minus 38 from that, and that would be 52. So this is 52 degrees. Now that I know that this, now I kind of skipped this one here, but I'm going to go back to it, and like I said, I'm just sort of jumping around and finding out what I have, and sometimes it is like that. You just sort of like, oh, okay, now I have this number, I should, you know, remember that all 3 of these interior ones add up to 180 degrees, so I'm going to go to minus 86. And minus 38, and that would be 56. And that's how they got angle 5 here for being 56. And angle number 1, which usually, again, we can figure them out in order, but just keep in mind, in this case, this would have been a really tough one to do in order. I don't know if it would even be possible, but again, I don't know if it's even possible, but just go with what you know, okay? Just fill in what you know. Okay. Number 11, that one looks, I mean, I probably could do that one pretty easily, and there's a lot of stuff. But I'm gonna go ahead and just skip that one for now, just because, again, there's 1, 2, 3 more pages that we should try to cover before we end this. So I'm gonna go ahead and move down here to number 12. And let's see, solve for x and find each angle measure. So let's see what we got here. All right, so since we know that all 3 interior angles add up to 180 degrees, we're going to take each of those and drop them into, so that way they're being added to each other. So drop each of those angles. So in this case, it would be something like this. And that's all they did, okay? We don't know what number these angles are in degrees, okay? So we don't know that. So since we don't know that, we're just going to have to drop everything we know, which in this case is their algebraic expression. So some of them still have variables and stuff like that. So we're just going to drop everything as is into this together. I'm going to clear this up just so it doesn't look all cluttered. And now we can start putting these together. 11x, 5x, 9x. So put those together, you get 25x. Right, add your like terms. So we're just doing basic algebra stuff. I know it's a lot of stuff, but it's still just basic stuff. So 11 plus 9 would be 20, plus 5 would be 25x. Add your regular numbers, negative 21, negative 2, and 3. Or am I missing one? It looks like I might be, oh, that's negative 21. Okay, looks like I must not got a good look at it. All right, so that would be negative 22 plus 3, and that would be 20, okay? And add 20 to both sides, because I got to get rid of this negative 20, so add 20 to both sides, and that would be 180. And now that leaves me with 25x equals 200, and what can I multiply by 25 to get 200? In other words, if I had 25-cent pieces or quarters, how many would I need to make, or how many would I have to need to make 200 cents or $2? Well, that'd be easy. It'd be 8, right? So now that we know that x is 8, we're going to go ahead and drop that in here because it says find x and then the measure of each angle. And if we're looking for the measure of each angle, well, how do we get those? Well, we know them here, but what we would do is we would take 8 and drop it in for each of these here. So 8 would be 9x, but we know that x is 8 now, plus 3. And then work this out. So that'd be 72 plus 3, and that would be 75. And that's how we get this number right here. So I just plugged in here to E, and then I do the same for D, plug it into here. So 5x, but instead that'd be 8. So that'd be 5 times 8, which would be 40 minus 2. So that would be 38 degrees. Plug it into the last one here, angle F. Plug it in, and we get 67. So that's kind of what's going on with this one here. And how am I doing on time? I started like maybe a few minutes late, but we should still have plenty of time. I mean, it's not like I wasted a whole lot of time. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and move down, and let's get ready to fill some more of these in. All right, it looks like the same kind of thing is going on here because I have 3 angles and they're all algebraic expressions. So just take each one and add it. So put a plus sign between all of them. So there's 1, the next one, and the next one. So they would all be added, so don't be putting in any minuses or anything like that. We don't want any minuses in there. They're just straight out being added to each other. All right, now that we have them all added, we set them equal to 180. Add our like terms, 4x, 10x, and 1x. So 1 plus 10, 1 plus 4 would be 5, and 5 plus 10 would be 15. So we got 15x here. Add up our regular numbers, negative 22, negative 4, and positive 11. And that's, put them all together, that's how we get negative 15. And it's still equal to 180. We didn't do anything to get rid of that 180. Add 15 to both sides. So 180 plus 15, right? Well, if we add 15 to both sides, this 15 will cancel. 180 plus 15 will be 195. And then, well, in this case here, I'd probably have to divide it because I don't know what number. I'd have to multiply by 15 to get 195. But easily I can just take 195 and divide that by 15. And in this case, I get 13. So now we know what x is. We know that x is 13. So we just go down the line, plug them back into each one. So I'm going to start with the first one they ask for first, and that's going to be p. So that'd be 10 times 13 minus 4. And that would be 130 minus 4. That would be 126, which is where they got this from. For the next one, they'd use q, which here we have 4x, but we know x is 13. And that would be 52 minus 22. That'd be 30 degrees. And that's where they got this one from. And then 24, R is 24 because 11 plus 13, right? 11 plus 13, easily enough, that would just be 24. So that's where they got 24 here. And that's it. Okay, so those first three were pretty easy because we're only dealing with the interior angles. It looks like 14 and 15 would be dealing with exterior angles as well. So exterior angles, well, it's probably not a lot of extra work, but it is, you know, it is something that will require you to know more information sometimes. All right, so let's go ahead and get ready to do some of those ones. So let me go ahead and, well, what do we know about the exterior angle? Well, remember that this angle is this one plus that one. So 13x minus 11, they put that first one here. 4x plus 1, and they put that one here. So add those two together, and that should add up to this one. And it doesn't have to be 180 degrees. In fact, it could be anything. It could be any number of angles. All right, it could be any number of angles. So don't be thinking that it has to equal any number in particular. But that's what they did though. And then from here, we would have to solve it regularly. So 13x, 4x, put them together, you get 17x. Negative 11 plus 1 is negative 10. And this side, nothing's happened to it. So we're still gonna have to keep using our regular rules of algebra. So minus 17x from both sides. And that gives us x1 here, or just 1x. Add 15 to both sides. So if I add 15 to both sides, well, that's going to be negative 10 plus 15. That would be 5. And that gives us our x value. So we know what x is again. And since we know what x is, just take that x, plug it back into each of these. All right, and I'm not going to do that here because I already showed you on this one here. Just plug it in. So to get the measure of angle CAB, so CAB, so that's this angle right here. They just took 5, dropped it in. So 13 times 5 minus 11. So that'd be 65 minus 11, and that would be 54 degrees. And again, just do that all the way down for each of the angles they're asking for. But the setup is the only thing that's different, actually. The setup, so the setup again, the exterior angle is the one that's by itself. These two must be added together. So I'm going to make this a little bit easier. And you don't need to draw the lines. I'm just showing you where they go, okay, in case someone's still confused about that. From here, just take on your regular algebra. 5x and 7x would be 12x. Negative 27 and negative 32 would be negative 59. Put these two, well, actually, it looks like I'm at the minus 9x from both sides, so minus 9x. And that's how they got 3x. I'm also going to have to add 59 to both sides, so negative 8 plus 59, or 59 minus 8 would be 51. And then 3 times what number gives us 51? Well, that'd be 17. Once you have the x value, I think most of these would be pretty straightforward. So that would be 17, and plug it back into each of these. Now, the only one that is not in there, the only one that is not plugged in, because I'm looking at this and I notice that one of them is not a plug-in, and that would be this angle right here, KLJ. KLJ. That one does not have anything to plug into. So how would you know what that is? Well, first off, you'd have to know what KLM is. So if we know that KLM is 145, so this is 145, well, these form a linear pair, or you could also, well, that's one way, and then, well, there's actually 2 ways you could do this. So 145, subtract that from 180, and you will get 35. So 35 degrees is how much this would be. Oops, 30. There you go. But again, if you know what these two are, if you know what JKL and LJK are, you could probably get the leftover, because these 3, right, this one, and this one should all equal to 180. And that's the other way you could get it too. So again, there's not just one way. I know a lot of times students are afraid of working on some of these kind of problems because they're afraid of running into a dead end where they get to a certain step and they just can't figure out the next step. And it shouldn't be like that. I think most of these, you shouldn't run into a whole lot of them. I'm not saying they won't be there, but you probably won't be running into a lot of them. Okay, so I'm gonna try to get through this as far as I can. Now we only have about 10 more minutes left. And we could probably go a little bit over, like a few minutes over, like 3 minutes, because I think we started like 3 minutes late. So I'll give you 2 minutes to write this down. And I'm not sure, maybe I could zoom out a little bit in case I have some people that are fast writers. There you go. You can kind of see everything, and the writing is big enough to where I think, some people would be able to see the whole thing. And I might not be able to go through the second page, but we could cover that in the independent student learning portion. Then we'll get some help on the homework. And I think so far, time-wise, it's not a big issue. I think there's plenty of time for us to work on this to get to that 4th page. So again, you got about 1 minute and 30 seconds to get as much of this down as you can. We'll cover it, and then that'll be the end for the lesson. And then again, we'll cover the 4th page in the independent student learning. Now, there was something I wanted to work on really quick. What was it? Oh, now I remember the screenshot. I just need to get a record for my attendance here. Actually, I think I forgot to do this a few days, just so that way I have a record of who's here and all that stuff. I was expecting more people to be here, but oh no. And I get it, that 3-day weekend can be really hard to get back from. All right, sorry, that took a little bit longer than I expected. It's actually more like 3 minutes, but that's okay. More stuff, right? More stuff to cover. Okay, so let's see. In this case here, for number 1, the only thing we have to keep in mind is that this is 90 degrees, right? Because this is a right triangle. So a right triangle, you can tell because it has that little box that says that it's 90 degrees. So when we set this up, 5x minus 2, 3x plus 4, and then 90. So that gives us a lot more to work with. So we can add up our regular numbers. And again, we're just doing our basic algebra stuff. So that would be combining like terms as our first step. 5x and 3x makes 8x. Adding up all our regular numbers will give us 92. And that will equal to 180 degrees. Minus 92. And that will be, well, 92 minus from 180 will be 88. 8x times 88 would be 11. And in this case here, it looks like we're only finding the value of x. We don't need to find all the other angles. So whatever these two are, we don't really need to know. But if we had to, we would just plug it in like we did with the last ones. All right, so another one with 3 angles that add up to 180 degrees. So again, interior angles of a triangle add up to 180 degrees. So grab each one of these, 9x minus 8. X plus 10, x plus 2, and that should give us 180 degrees. So just use your basic algebra again. And I keep saying that, but that's really what a lot of these questions boil down to. So make sure your algebra is strong. All right, 180 minus 4 would be 176. And in this case, I'd probably use a calculator for this one too, because I wouldn't know what, dividing by 11 is pretty easy right up until you get to 99. All right, and that would be 16, and that's all we need to do. So I'm gonna go ahead and go down. That's a little too far down. In this case here, we have an exterior angle. So whenever you have an exterior angle, that can be a little bit tricky sometimes. Because again, a lot of times I would imagine students would kind of just set it equal to 180 because that's what they're used to. But remember, actually, this one here is our exterior angle. That one on the outside is the one that needs to be by itself. And these two here, the other two, those ones need to be added together to get that outside angle. And this one's a little bit of a tricky one because you notice that the point of the triangle is actually, it's like over this angle. So it might be a little bit tricky looking at it, looking at the diagram, you'd be like, which ones went where or something? But yeah, it would be these two here. And again, it's not this one. The only one you cannot use is the one that the exterior angle is coming out from. All right, so anyway, you have 11x minus 2, 9x plus 1. Do your algebra, so 9x plus 11x would be 20x. 1 minus, well, actually, negative 2 plus 1 would be negative 1. And it looks like they minus 19x from both sides, and that gives us 1x, but I'd have to add 1 to both sides, and that'd be 3 plus 1, which would be 4. There we go. Okay, now this next one here is kind of a tricky one, and it looks like they are bringing out a little bit more tricks in this case here. Because looking at this, before we start, this angle is equal to that angle. So we have 2 congruent angles. So that would make this an isosceles triangle, which would mean that this is also 7x plus 2. Now, in this case here, they multiply both of them. Okay, they're multiplying 7x plus 2 twice. But even if you were to add 7x plus 2 and add 7x plus 2, you would still get the same thing. You would still get 14x plus 4, because if I add 2 together, and again, that's just 2 ways of doing this, but they went with this way, and they're going to double it, because in this case, they know there's 2 of them that are exactly the same size. And let's see, 17x minus 14x would be 3x. Add 23 to both sides, so that'd be 27. And there we go, we get 9 as our x. Now I'm gonna try to get through this it looks like we only have 3 more to go. And I'm just going to point out some of the trickier things, some of the things that as I'm looking over, you know, what would some students get stuck on? And it looks like in this case we have X and a Y. So let's see, we have a Y here, X, X. So let's look at what we have. So it looks like we would be able to get X because here we have a vertical angle, so opposite angle, which means that this other side here would be 11x minus 9. So when they set it up, 7x minus 2, they put it here, 11x minus 9, and this third angle they know is 72, so they just drop that in there and set them all three to equal 180. Now, in this case, I think you'd have to find out what x is first before you find out what y is, because now that we know that x is 7, you're going to have to plug it into here. So that would be 77 minus 9. And that would be 68 degrees, I believe. And that would mean that these two put together would be, well, actually there's a couple of ways you could do this. But let's see what they did. So they got the 5x, 5y minus 8, and they know that this is 82. My guess is that they went ahead and took away 180 minus 30 minus 68. Now they skipped a little bit of a step here. And yeah, that does equal 82. So these two on this triangle here equal to 82. So they know that these two, or they might also be using an exterior angle as well. So again, there's a second way of doing this, but I think the way I'm doing it is a little bit easier. And you know, whenever you can, go ahead and try to use the 180, the 3 angles adding up to 180. I think it might be easier, but just also keep in mind that you also have that other one to go with. So anyway, they set that equal to 82 because they know these two are 82. So whatever's left over must be, you know, what you're looking for. And that's how we get y equals 18. All right, so go ahead and move down to here. And let's see how they got this one here. So looks like we have an exterior angle again. Now here's the tricky one with this one is because we know the exterior one should be on the outside, but we have to pick 2 of them, right? And it's got to be the non-adjacent one, so the one that's not next to it. So that would be these 2. So when we look at how it was set up, this one plus that one, those 2 add up to the outside one. Okay, then they did the usual algebra stuff, and now they ended up getting the x value. All right. Now to get the y value, how did they get that? So they know this is y. Now I think what they did was since they know that this is x, and they know that's 86, they probably plugged in x here. And then these 2 angles, you add them together, and whatever this one is will add up to 180. But it looks like what they might have done, and I'm pretty sure that is what they did because it's 41 here. But again, there would be a second way of doing this, and that would be using a linear pair because you know these 2 would add up to 180. Which actually, there would not be a big difference between those 2 methods. I think the numbers and the work would be exactly the same. All right, so here we go. Last one, and in this case here, we have parallel lines. It says it right there, L and M are parallel. Find the values of X and Y. So we have a couple of things that are a little bit, we have more things available to us in order to figure this out. So for instance, we know that these would be alternate interior angles here and here. So this one and that one would be the same. And it looks like they're going to find x first by adding all of these in here. So where they got this 5x minus 8, they got it because these two are the same. So again, alternate interior angle says that those two things are the same measure. They are congruent. So that's where they got this from, 5x minus 8. The rest of it, they grabbed from the other side, 7x minus 31 and 63. So they did the algebra, they got the x. So now they know that x is 13. So now we got to go get the y. So we have an exterior angle right here. So this is on the outside, that's not the inside one. What they likely did was plug in x as 13. So again, it's going to be the same one here. And that would be 5 times 13 minus 8. Actually, how did they do it? They got 123. Where would they have gotten that 123 from? They probably added these two together, this one and that one. And they know that this one will add up to both of those angles. So I'm guessing that's how they did it. And again, there's more than one way to do these, and that's how they got the y. And like I said, I kind of went through that a little bit quicker. Sorry about that. But I'm going to go ahead and start over on the next page here, and then we can go into the independent student learning time. So that would be, let's see, how much time would that be? So from now, and then we'll reconvene at 9:45. So I'll go ahead and wait for you there. And until then, that will be it for today. But again, you can still get this part here. Anyway, see you in a minute or an hour.